They say when someone suddenly changes how they treat you, trust your gut. I didn't. And now I wish I had. It started on a crisp spring morning in Peachtree Corners, Georgia. The magnolia trees swayed lazily in the breeze, and the scent of cinnamon rolls drifted through my open kitchen window. I was humming softly, folding Evan's little socks, when I heard the creak of the garden gate. Evan, my 6-year-old boy with those deep, watchful eyes, was crouched by the porch steps, tracing patterns in the dust with a twig. He looked up and gave me that crooked smile of his, the kind that makes you believe, just for a moment, that the world might be okay after all. "Auntie Shauna's here," he said, standing up a little straighter. I blinked. Shauna? Sure enough, her glossy black SUV pulled into our driveway like it belonged there. Out stepped Shauna in a pressed white blouse, sunglasses perched on her head, and a wide smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her daughter Sophie followed behind, skipping, blonde curls bouncing. Sophie was a carbon copy of her mother, always well-dressed, always camera-ready. "Hey, Marla." Shauna called out like we'd just had brunch yesterday. "Thought I'd swing by and take the kids out. Just a little bonding time, you know." I wiped my hands on my apron, my smile tight. Shauna and I weren't exactly close. Scratch that, we were oil and water. But lately, she'd been making a strange effort. Texting more. Commenting on my Facebook posts with emojis. And now this. "Evan's almost done with breakfast," I said cautiously. "Where were you thinking of going?" "Oh, just the park and maybe frozen yogurt," she shrugged breezily. "Nothing too crazy." My stomach twisted. I remembered what Evan had once said in the quietest voice, curled beside me at bedtime. "Auntie Shauna smiles different when you're not looking." Still, Evan's face was glowing. He'd never really had that kind of cousin time. He'd always been the one left out of birthday parties, the one who flinched when loud noises cracked through the air. But this morning, he looked hopeful. I knelt beside him. "Do you want to go, sweetheart?" He nodded, his little fingers already tugging at the Velcro on his shoes. I moved into checklist mode, packed his allergy-friendly snacks, his noise-canceling headphones, the tracking bracelet I clipped around his ankle without fuss. As I turned to grab his favorite cap, I noticed the handkerchief Sophie had given him at Christmas, soft pink with tiny stitched stars. Evan kept it close, like a tether between them. I slipped it gently into his pocket. When we stepped outside, Shauna was leaning against her SUV, flipping through her phone. "Wow, Marla," she said, looking up. "You really pack him up like he's heading to the wilderness." I bit back a retort. "Just being careful." "Of course," she said, flashing teeth. "You know me. I got this." Her voice was too cheerful, almost mocking. Evan walked up to her slowly. She bent down and offered her hand, and for a moment, I thought he might turn back. Instead, he reached into his pocket, took out the pink handkerchief, and handed it to her. "For safe," he whispered. Shauna blinked, then laughed, tucking it into her purse like it was a trinket. "Okay, little man. Let's go get that froyo." Evan hugged me tightly, longer than usual. He didn't say a word, just pressed his face into my stomach, his fingers curling around my sweater. My throat tightened. "It's okay, baby," I murmured. "Have fun. And if anything feels weird, I'll call you," he finished. His voice was soft but steady. I nodded, kneeling to kiss his forehead. "That's my boy." The SUV pulled out slowly. Sophie waved enthusiastically through the window. Shauna tapped her horn twice and sped off, music already pulsing through the speakers. I exhaled, standing in the driveway, squinting into the sun. A ding echoed from my phone. Text from Shauna. Don't worry, I got this, winky face. I stared at the message, something unsettling curling low in my stomach. The winking emoji felt wrong. I went inside, tried to focus on the dishes, on folding laundry, on anything other than imagining Evan in a crowded park, overwhelmed by the buzz of life. But something kept pulling at me. A thread I couldn't ignore. And the pink handkerchief. Why did that feel so important all of a sudden? I checked the time. They'd been gone 20 minutes. I opened our location sharing app. Evans blinked near the town center. All seemed fine. But then it flickered just once and stopped moving. I sat down. Waited. 5 more minutes. Then 10. The dot stayed still. I called Shauna. No answer. I texted, "Hey, just checking in, how's Evan?" No reply. I tried again. Still nothing. Outside, the wind had picked up, scattering magnolia petals across the yard like confetti. I stood at the door, phone clutched in my hand. And that's when I knew something wasn't right. When Sophie called, I was slicing strawberries. The blade slipped from my hand the second I heard her voice. I didn't even wait to ask what was wrong. Something in the way she whispered, breathless and uneven, cracked straight through my chest. "Something's wrong with Evan," she choked. "He's not waking up." The phone clattered to the floor, and I was out the door before it stopped spinning. I barely remembered the drive. Just the screech of tires, the blur of red stop signs, and the rising roar in my ears that no amount of deep breathing could quiet. The warm Georgia afternoon, what should have been another gentle spring day, was suddenly too bright, too loud. I pulled up to Peachtree Ridge Park and jumped out before my car even came to a full stop. Across the lawn, kids screamed and parents hovered, but a cluster had formed near the shaded picnic tables. I ran. There, under a sycamore tree, was Evan. He lay motionless on the grass, his small body still. His face was pale, lips tinged with blue. His chest barely moved. I dropped to my knees. "Evan?" My voice cracked. "Evan, baby, it's Mama. Can you hear me?" Sophie was crouched beside him, her little hands clutching his arm like it was a life raft. Tears streaked her cheeks, and her voice trembled. "He won't wake up." I shook him, but Mom says it's just a prank. A prank? I turned slowly. Shauna stood a few feet away, arms crossed, sunglasses still perched like armor over her perfectly arched brows. She was texting. Or maybe pretending to. "I told you," she said, exasperated. "He's just tired. Kids nap. Especially sensitive ones like him." My jaw clenched. "He's not napping. He's barely breathing." "Drama," she muttered, as if I were accusing her of burning cookies, not endangering a child. I whipped out my phone and called 911. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. As I spoke to dispatch, rattling off our location, his condition, his age, I caught something out of the corner of my eye. "Shauna." She was hastily swiping through her phone, then pressing something, delete. "What are you doing?" I demanded. She didn't look up. "Nothing. Clearing space." "For what, Shauna? Evidence?" She finally met my eyes, her expression flat. "You're being ridiculous." "It was just juice. Orange. Organic." I knelt back down beside Evan. His skin felt clammy. His breathing was shallow, barely a whisper. I brushed hair off his forehead and tried to hold it together. "My baby? My whole world. What juice?" I asked, still not looking at her. "Juice," she repeated. "What's the big deal?" Sophie hiccuped through her tears. Mom made him drink it, she whispered. Said it would be fun. I turned back. What? Sophie's voice was barely audible. She said it would be funny if he acted silly. She mixed something in. Shauna's eyes widened, just for a split second. Then her mouth tightened. Oh, come on. Sophie misunderstood. You know how kids exaggerate. Sophie looked at me, eyes wide and frightened. She said it was just for laughs. I didn't know it would make him sick. I didn't know. Baby, it's okay, I whispered, wrapping one arm around her and the other around Evan. You did the right thing calling me. Sirens blared in the distance, drawing closer. Parents nearby started murmuring, some drifting closer, curious. A couple of moms exchanged worried glances. A man in a baseball cap pulled his daughter back by the hand. And just like that, I realized this moment would divide people. Some would ask hard questions. Some would look away, because some moms show up with cupcakes. Some show up with excuses. The ambulance cut across the grass. EMTs rushed forward, radios crackling. I stepped back as they swarmed around Evan, placing oxygen tubes, checking vitals, asking rapid-fire questions. Shauna stood off to the side, arms folded tighter now, chin tilted like she was above it all. As if this was just an inconvenience. When one of the EMTs asked what Evan had ingested, I turned to her. What was in the juice? She shrugged. I said orange. Maybe a little honey. Anything else? I asked sharply. Anything at all? Her mouth curved slightly. You'd be amazed what a drop of chamomile can do to a dramatic child. It hit me like a slap. She thought this was funny. Or maybe she didn't care. I couldn't decide which was worse. Evan was being lifted onto a stretcher now, his hand still slack in Sophie's. I touched his cheek. Mama's right here, baby. You're okay. I climbed into the ambulance beside him, ignoring Shauna's voice behind me calling out, "Tell the doctors he's sensitive." Don't forget to tell them. The doors slammed shut, sealing me into a world of beeping monitors and sterile air. And still, the noise outside, the chaos of the park, the rumors already taking shape, was nothing compared to the storm inside me. I held Evan's hand, felt his fingers twitch ever so slightly, just enough to keep me breathing. But somewhere, deeper than the fear, was something else. Hospitals have a smell, not just antiseptic. It's the scent of fear pretending to be hope. A clean kind of dread. The kind that sticks to your clothes even after you've showered. The emergency room at Northside was cold. Not just the air, but the lights, the stairs, even the silence between machine beeps. I sat on the edge of a hard plastic chair, gripping Evan's soft little shoe in one hand, as if holding that part of him would anchor me to the rest. Inside the pediatric trauma bay, they had stripped him down to his diaper and hooked him up to wires, tubes, things I didn't understand. His cheeks were flushed now, too flushed, and his eyelids fluttered like he was chasing something in a dream he didn't choose. A nurse came in and asked if Evan had any known allergies, what he'd eaten, if he had a history of seizures. I answered every question like a quiz I hadn't studied for, terrified I'd get one wrong. A doctor finally entered, clipboard in hand, calm but alert. Her name tag read Dr. R. Myers, Pediatric ER. She didn't sugarcoat anything. Your son's blood work shows mild alcohol content, she said, glancing between me and Trevor, who'd finally shown up 10 minutes ago, pale and speechless. And he's showing signs of sedative exposure, she continued. It's low dose, but for a child his size, it's enough to cause respiratory depression. My mouth opened, then closed. Sedatives? Something like Benadryl, but higher concentration. Possibly more. Trevor blinked. But he's 6. We don't keep anything like that in the house. I turned toward Shauna, who was perched on a chair against the wall like a cat at the vet, composed but annoyed to be there. She clutched a designer handbag in her lap like a lifeline and twisted her mouth into a frown that didn't reach her eyes. I gave him juice, she said flatly. Just a little orange juice. From Whole Foods. Maybe he had something else earlier. Dr. Myers didn't blink. We'll do a tox panel. And we'll need to notify Child Protective Services. Shauna's shoulders tensed. Oh, come on. Isn't that a bit much? I stared at her, stunned by how quickly she shifted from concern to inconvenience. Trevor cleared his throat. Look, maybe it was an accident. Maybe he found something? At the park. My eyes snapped to him. Found something? Or was given something? He flinched. Marla, please. This isn't the time to start pointing fingers. Isn't it? I snapped. Because if we don't point them now, he might never wake up. There was a pause so thick it muffled even the beeping monitors. I turned to the nurse. He had a tracking bracelet on. It logs his movements and vitals. There should be data on what happened. She nodded. Where is it? I reached for Evan's backpack, the one Shauna had returned with. I unzipped the side pouch and pulled out the tiny gray device. It looked intact, blinking softly, until I turned it over. No serial number. No port. No data interface. My fingers trembled. I tapped the screen. Nothing. This isn't his, I whispered. Trevor leaned closer. What do you mean? This isn't the tracker I bought. His had a charging port. A Touch ID lock. My voice cracked. This is a toy. A fake. The nurse took it gently from my hand and examined it. This doesn't appear to be functional. I stared at it like it might explain itself. I'd paid extra for real-time location updates, emergency alerts, the whole package. It was my peace of mind. Now it was a hollow piece of plastic with a blinking light that meant nothing. Shauna shrugged. Maybe he swapped it by accident? I met her eyes. Or maybe someone swapped it for him. She smiled, just a little. That sounds like a conspiracy theory. The room tilted slightly. I had to sit down. The doctor excused herself. The nurse followed. Trevor hovered, awkward and unsure, like a man torn between two worlds, one where he's the concerned father, and the other where his loyalty to his sister-in-law trumps common sense. Trevor, I said quietly, do you believe me? He exhaled. I believe Evan's sick. That's not what I asked. He didn't answer. The air felt thin. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake him. But instead, I just stared at Evan's tiny chest rising and falling beneath the blankets. Then my phone vibrated. Unknown number. No name. Just a message. Stop digging. Think of your son. I blinked at the screen. Read it again. And again. My throat went dry. I showed Trevor. His face went pale. You think that's about this? I didn't answer. But something inside me snapped tight. I once believed hospitals were places where things got fixed. Broken bones, broken bodies, even broken spirits. But now, under these lights and these hollow words, I realized something else. Hospitals don't always heal. Sometimes they unravel truths you weren't ready to see. And whoever sent that message, they knew I was ready to look. I thought being a mother would give me power. That when the world came crashing in, I'd rise with the kind of strength people don't question. But today, being a mother only gave me doubt. The kind no one else wanted to carry. The living room was dark, save for the soft blue glow of my laptop screen. I sat cross-legged on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes, a cold cup of chamomile forgotten beside me. Evan was finally asleep, his little chest rising and falling on the baby monitor propped on a stack of old parenting books I hadn't touched in months. I opened a new folder on my desktop and named it For Evan. Inside, I started dragging everything that mattered. Every email, every picture, every strange message. I didn't know what I was building, proof, maybe? Or a record. Just in case the world needed convincing. I scrolled through old photos, birthday parties, Christmas mornings, trips to the apple orchard. I paused on one, Evan in his classroom, red-eyed and crying, mouth slightly open as if mid-whimper. And there, right below it, was the caption posted by Shauna. Still love him though, face blowing kiss. My jaw clenched. Who posts a photo of a crying child like it's funny? Who adds a kiss emoji? I leaned back and pressed my fingers to my temple. Something inside me itched with unease. Like I'd walked into a room I'd been in before, but the furniture had been moved just enough to make me stumble. My phone buzzed. A call from my mother-in-law. I let it ring twice before answering. Hi, Sharon. She didn't waste time. I heard Evan's doing better. He's stable. She exhaled. That's good. You know, sweetie, I'm sure Shauna didn't mean any harm. I didn't respond. It's just, you've always been very intense, Marla. Protective. Is that supposed to be an insult or a compliment? I asked quietly. Oh, honey, don't be like that. We all want what's best for Evan. Then maybe someone should have believed me the first 10 times I said something was off. There was a long pause. You might be reading into this too much. Kids get sick. Emotions run high. Maybe this whole thing just snowballed. I hung up before she finished the sentence. I stared at the screen again, my vision blurred by exhaustion. Another notification popped up. New post from Shauna. I shouldn't have clicked it, but I did. There she was, front and center in a golden hour family photo. Trevor stood beside her, holding Sophie, all smiles. Shauna had even tagged the hospital in the location. Love heals all. 2 hearts, #family first. My hands shook. I wanted to scream. Or cry. Or both. Instead, I opened a new message. To Tisha Monroe. Hey, random, but do you remember Shauna? Can I ask you something? Tisha and I hadn't talked in years. In high school, she and Shauna were locked in a quiet Cold War, smiles in front, daggers behind. At the time, I dismissed it as drama. Now I wondered what Tisha had seen that I hadn't. 5 minutes passed. Then, Tisha, oh, I remember her. Why? Me. Did she ever say anything weird about kids? Or Evan? 3 dots blinked. Then, Tisha, not Evan. But once at a sleepover, she bragged she could make any silent kid cry. She thought it was hilarious. I sat frozen. The memory of Evan's trembling lip, his hesitant speech, his struggle to process loud noises, it all surged back like a tide I'd tried to ignore. Shauna knew. She always knew. And she didn't care. I minimized the chat and opened the media player on my computer. For the past few weeks, since things had started feeling off, I'd kept a voice memo journal. Just thoughts. Worries. Fleeting instincts I didn't want to forget. Tonight, I recorded something different. I hit play. If anything happens to me, this is what she did. My voice, slightly hoarse, echoed back into the room. Flat. Measured. Cold. Her name is Shauna Elise Patterson. She's married to my husband's brother. She pretends to love my son. But she doesn't. She makes fun of him when she thinks no one is listening. She gave him something, something that almost stopped his heart. I don't know if I'll ever be able to prove it, but I need this on record, because I'm tired of people saying it's all in my head. I click stop. Truth has a sound. It's quiet, but relentless. Like water through stone. It never shouts. But it never stops either. That night, I stayed on the couch until morning. The tea grew colder. The screen went dim. But my determination burned hotter than ever. They didn't believe me. But soon they would. Evan never lies. He just sometimes says truths too soft for the world to hear. It was raining lightly that evening, the kind of slow drizzle that made the windows hum and the whole house feel wrapped in a quiet lullaby. Evan was curled up next to me under a soft cotton blanket, his head resting against my side, crayon in hand. We weren't talking much, just coloring. The table lamp cast a warm puddle of light across the sketchpad. I tried not to overanalyze his every line, but it was hard not to notice. He had drawn a cup, tall, narrow, with what looked like a red zigzag streak across it. At first glance, I thought it was lightning, but he carefully shaded the bottom of the cup, adding drops falling from the rim. Red. Evan, I said softly, trying to keep my voice level. That's a strong color choice. What's this one about? He didn't look up. His crayon moved back and forth with the kind of focus only kids seem to have. That's the glass, he murmured. I tried not to flinch. What glass, honey? The one from the park. He paused. She poured it. I said no. She laughed. My heart thudded so loud I was sure he could hear it. I swallowed hard and reached for my phone, pretending to check something. My fingers hovered over the screen as I snapped a picture of the drawing. I forwarded it immediately to Dr. Jansen, the child psychologist we'd connected with on Zoom the week before. Less than 2 minutes later, her text buzzed back. Dr. Jansen, he's showing resistance and trauma awareness. Document this. Try recording if he shares more. I looked back down at Evan. His legs were curled like a cat's, socked feet barely brushing the floor. He picked up a blue crayon and started filling in a cloud above the red glass. She told me not to tell, he said suddenly, his voice even softer than before. I gently placed a hand on his back. Who, sweetheart? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he whispered, she said if I tell you, she'll take Sophie away too. That was when I hit record. I didn't prompt him, didn't guide. I just let the voice memo app run, catching every word as it stumbled out of his 6-year-old mouth, halting, but clear. Her laugh was not nice laugh. I said I don't want the juice. She said it's special juice. She looked at Sophie and said SHHH. Then she said, don't tell mommy. Or I'll take Sophie away too. I blinked hard, trying to stay present. Outside, the rain thickened, turning the glass panes into blurry mirrors. Inside, my son was quietly dismantling every excuse the adults had been feeding me for days. I kissed the top of his head. He looked up. Did I do good, Mommy? I nodded, my throat too tight for words. I squeezed him gently, hoping he felt more than heard what I couldn't say. Later that night, I uploaded the drawing and audio file to the folder on my laptop, for Evan was growing, piece by piece. I added timestamped notes. Cross-referenced the recording with my text thread from the hospital. Every detail mattered now. My phone buzzed again. Tisha, check this out. Some mom posted on an old allergy forum I follow. She sent a screenshot. A comment from a woman named Caitlin B. Mom read, back in 2018, a lady named Shauna at a school picnic tried to make my kid taste a muffin even after I told her he had celiac. She said, come on, it'll be fun. My son was sick for 3 days. I reported her, but nothing came of it. I stared at the screen. Patterns were forming. Too many for coincidence. I was about to reply when another notification slid across the top of my screen, an email. From anonymous@protonmail.com. Subject: I saw what happened. Message: you're not crazy. I was at the park. I saw what she did. I'll reach out again. Please don't stop. My breath caught. I reread it twice, then a third time. Outside, the rain had softened to a mist. Somewhere down the street, a neighbor's wind chime gave a single, soft clink. I stared at Evan, now fast asleep on the couch, crayon still tucked in his hand. His face was peaceful, a little furrow between his brows even in sleep. That furrow had appeared more often in the last few months. Children don't need perfect mothers, I whispered to myself, brushing a loose strand of hair from his forehead. They need mothers who won't look away. And I wouldn't. Not now. Not ever. The word prank is too light. Like calling a storm a drizzle just because you're not the one standing in the rain. I sat across from Tisha at the little cafe on Brook Hollow Drive, just a block from her condo. The place smelled of burnt espresso and cinnamon, and the hum of quiet conversations was occasionally broken by the hiss of the steamer behind the counter. Outside, a dog barked twice. The barista changed the music, switching to a soft piano playlist that barely covered the tension in my chest. Tisha handed me her phone without saying a word. I didn't want to look. I did anyway. Local mom defends sister-in-law over allergy incident. The headline practically leapt from the screen. The article was posted by Peachtree Family Buzz, a small blog usually reserved for recipe swaps and charity drives. But today it had become a stage Shauna knew how to perform on. The opening paragraph was a photo of her and Sophie, arms around each other, framed in soft autumn light. She was smiling that polished pageant smile I used to admire before I knew better. The quote beneath it made my stomach clench. It was just juice and giggles. Kids will be kids. Evan's my nephew, I love him. It was a misunderstanding. They're cousins, not court cases. I read it again. The word misunderstanding felt like ice water on an open wound. Tisha raised her brow. Weaponizing likability, she said, calmly stirring her tea. Classic. She's twisting it like I'm the overprotective freak, I muttered, barely able to form the words. You knew she'd do this, Tisha said. You even said she's the queen of curated chaos. I leaned back in the chair, rubbing my temples. People around us were starting to murmur about the article. One woman at the table near the window had her phone out and whispered, I think that's the mom, yes, her, from the park thing. I didn't look up. I just kept breathing. That's when a stranger approached. A woman in her late 30s, jeans and a fleece jacket, baby spit up, faintly visible on one shoulder. She hesitated a moment before saying, You're Marla, right? I nodded. She glanced down, as if unsure if she should keep going. I saw the article. Listen, I don't want to get involved, but a few years ago, Shauna made fun of my daughter at a birthday party. Said she was the speech delay fairy in front of everyone. Tisha leaned forward. And everyone laughed, the woman whispered. Even me. I didn't know what to do. I felt awful afterward. But Shauna, she has that way of making it seem like a joke. Like you're the one being sensitive if you don't laugh. She offered a sad smile, then slipped back to her table without another word. I turned to Tisha. It's like she's been rehearsing for this her whole life. Tisha didn't disagree. She makes cruelty look like charisma. That's why you need evidence. Facts. Not vibes. Her words echoed as I stared at the article again. A comment thread below it was already filling up. Poor Shauna. She's always been the glue in that family. People are so quick to call everything abuse now. It was a joke. Lighten up. That last one stayed with me. Because I used to say that too. About things that made me uncomfortable. It was a joke. Lighten up. Until the joke was poured into my son's glass. I pulled out my laptop. The cafe's Wi-Fi was spotty, but good enough. I opened a search tab and typed slowly. How to request security footage from Peachtree Ridge Park. Tisha leaned over. Now you're thinking like a mom who won't look away. A shiver ran through me, but not from fear. From resolve. I would get the footage. I would collect screenshots, testimonies, forum posts, everything. Shauna built her defense on charm and deflection. I would build mine on facts and timestamps. My son deserved that. Later that night, I returned home alone. Evan had gone to sleep early. His blanket was bunched under his chin, his breathing even and soft. I tucked him in tighter and kissed his forehead. I made tea, sat by the front window. The glow of my laptop lit up the living room. Another hour passed. I organized the folder again, added tags, backed everything up twice. At some point, the sound of a soft knock startled me. It was close to midnight. I walked to the front door slowly, barefoot against the cool wooden floor. Through the peephole. Nothing. No car. No figure. I opened the door anyway. And there, hanging on the brass doorknob, was the pink handkerchief. Sophie's handkerchief. The one she'd given me to help Evan when he's nervous. It looked freshly washed. Pressed. Hung with care. No note. Just that. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there for a moment, one hand on the doorknob, the other trembling slightly as I reached for the cloth. The weight of it felt heavier than cotton. Cruelty, when dressed in charm, is the hardest truth to make others see. But I'd make them see it, even if I had to pull back every single thread. The hardest part isn't when strangers doubt you. It's when your own neighborhood stops saying hi. The PTA room at Evan's school used to smell like vanilla and pencil shavings. Now it just smelled like disapproval. Artificial lemon-scented wipes, burned coffee, and judgment. I sat in the far left corner of the folding table circle, the only chair left beside me untouched. I wasn't surprised. I'd become the ghost in the room, visible, inconvenient, and politely avoided. Whispers rippled like wind behind shuttered blinds. There had once been an apple pie party on this very campus. Shauna had organized it, complete with Pinterest-perfect baskets and cider with floating cranberries. She'd worn boots with a gold zipper and smiled so big the newspaper used her picture for the front page. Now, the same women who had laughed over pie crust edges wouldn't look at me. One mother angled her body so her back was fully turned toward me, her elbow a small, unspoken wall. The principal, Mr. Gaines, adjusted his tie as he addressed the room. Before we begin, let's welcome someone who really embodies what community means, Shauna. Thank you again for stepping in to lead the upcoming book drive. A round of light clapping. Only I noticed how slow it started. Shauna stood with a slight tilt of her head, as if the praise had caught her off guard. She wore her motherhood like a campaign badge, chic sweater, neutral makeup, hands folded like a politician caught mid-blessing. "I'm just here to help," she said sweetly. "We've all been through enough drama lately. I think it's time we focus on healing." I felt the air shift. Healing. That was code. The town had chosen sides. And I wasn't on hers. I raised my hand. "Mr. Gaines?" He blinked, clearly surprised. Yes, Mrs. Turner? I submitted a request to review the playground footage from last week. I'd like to know if that has been processed. He coughed. Well, the district has protocols and… Shauna interrupted, ever so gently. Let's not let old wounds distract from progress. Progress. Another code word. This town loved civility more than justice. I didn't reply. I just lowered my hand and took another slow sip of cold tea from the thermos I always carried. It tasted bitter tonight. As the meeting ended, people filtered out quickly, no small talk, no how's Evan, not even the empty see you next week. I was packing up my folder when someone tapped my shoulder. Fran. She used to babysit for Evan when he was little, before she took up part-time work cleaning houses and tending school lunch counters. She wore a faded blue smock, and her hands smelled faintly of bleach. I saw your face, she said quietly, when they clapped for her. I nodded. Guess people clap louder when they're scared to sit in silence. Fran didn't laugh. She looked around, lowered her voice. I clean houses, Marla. I see things. Hear things people forget to hide. That woman's a mirror. She just reflects what people want to see. I looked at her then. Really looked. There was something in her eyes I hadn't seen in weeks. Recognition. From the pocket of her apron, she pulled out a tiny USB stick. It was scuffed, taped on one end. Watch this when you're alone, she said. What is it? She didn't answer. Just pressed it into my hand. You deserve to know you're not crazy. That night, after Evan had gone to bed and the house had gone quiet, I closed the living room blinds and dimmed the lamp beside the couch. I plugged the USB into my laptop and waited as a single file loaded. Kitchen_cam MP4. I clicked play. The footage was grainy, taken from a home security camera angled toward a sleek kitchen island. Shauna stood by the counter, stirring something in a glass. She was alone. Her voice, when it came, was clear and unguarded. That kid's just a burden. One little push, he'd fall. I hit pause. I had to. My whole body went still, like the silence in a theater after a punchline turns out not to be funny. I rewound. One little push, he'd fall. She said it with a smirk. Like she was recounting a funny line from a movie. Like my son was a prop. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just reached for my notebook and wrote down the exact timestamp. This wasn't just opinion anymore. This was evidence. The halo she wore in this town might still glow under the porch lights of PTA moms sipping Chardonnay, but not forever. Halos only matter in places like this if you know how to polish them for the camera. I was done playing along. I emailed the video to a secure cloud. Made a copy. Wrote Fran a thank you note I'd leave at the front office. And then I made myself a fresh cup of tea, not out of habit, but ceremony. Because something had shifted tonight. And it wasn't just me. If truth is a risk, then silence is a prison. And I've had enough of pretending to be okay. The library meeting room smelled like old carpet and worry. The kind of space that held PTA workshops and quiet book club debates, but tonight it felt like a trial. Not the courtroom kind. The social kind, where judgment wore polite smiles and folded hands. Fran stood beside me, clutching her worn purse like armor. Tisha leaned against the wall near the coffee urn, her phone already set to record if needed. A few folding chairs creaked as parents shifted uncomfortably, adjusting sweaters, sipping lukewarm tea from paper cups. Only 8 of us were there, but it felt like 100 eyes. I cleared my throat. Thank you for coming, I began, voice steadier than I felt. I know this isn't easy. It's not for me either. A tall woman near the door folded her arms. You're asking us to believe Shauna's a monster. I didn't flinch. No. I'm asking you to watch something. Then decide for yourself. I connected my laptop to the tiny projector Fran had brought, the USB already plugged in. The screen flickered against the beige wall as the grainy footage loaded. The video played. Shauna in the kitchen, stirring, laughing, and then those words. That kid's just a burden. One little push, he'd fall. The silence afterward was a vacuum. No one breathed. One mother blinked rapidly, as if trying to process the audio. Another rubbed her temples, her eyes glued to the floor. Finally, someone, and I think, whispered, "I've been scared of her too. She once told my son if he tattled, no one would believe him because she's the fun mom." Another parent, Todd, cleared his throat. "This isn't easy. Shauna brought my daughter cookies when she had the flu. She took our Christmas photos." But that video, he shook his head. "That's not a misunderstanding." Tisha stepped forward. "You all know I've never liked her. I won't pretend otherwise. But disliking someone isn't proof. That video? That is proof." A moment passed, then another, and looked up at me. "If you go public, we'll back you." My hands shook a little as I unplugged the USB. "I'm not doing this for drama. I'm doing this because my son deserves to feel safe. And so do yours." "I'll go first," Tisha said. She opened her phone, thumbs flying. By the time we left the room, her post was already live. "If no one else says it, I will. She's not who you think." Some people smile with their teeth and hide cruelty behind polished countertops and PDA bake sales. If you've seen it, say something. I just did. Hashtag protect our kids. 2 hours later, it had over 200 shares. Not viral, but enough. Enough to make the silence crack. I was folding laundry when my phone buzzed. "Shauna." I didn't want to open it, but I did. "Stop this, or I'll bury you in court." "You think anyone will believe a paranoid mom over me?" My fingers curled so tight around the phone I thought the screen might crack. Fran texted me a minute later. "Don't let her scare you. Bullies don't win unless we back down." I didn't reply. I just breathed. Deeply. Slowly. The next morning, an email arrived. No subject line. Just the address. District Office at Fulton County, Gov. I clicked. "Dear Mrs. Turner, we've received information related to a potential endangerment case. Please come in. We'd like to discuss what you know." I stared at the message. The cursor blinked at the bottom of the screen like a metronome. Tisha called a minute later. "Did you get it?" "Yeah," I said. "I did. You ready?" I looked at Evan, asleep on the couch with his stuffed fox curled under his chin. The morning light made his hair glow gold. I thought of his drawing, the lightning bolt glass, his whispered truth, the soft weight of the pink handkerchief on our doorknob, and the video. That video. "I was born ready," I said. "The truth doesn't need a stage. It just needs someone brave enough to speak. They say justice is blind." I just didn't expect it to be slow and deaf, too. The public defender's office didn't look like justice. It looked like waiting. The lobby was all beige walls, stackable chairs, and lukewarm water coolers. A faint hum came from somewhere behind the reception desk, maybe a heater fighting against Georgia's weak winter chill. It was the kind of morning where the sun was too tired to shine. Just light filtering through dusty blinds, scattering across the floor like old regrets. Carla met me at the hallway. She was sharp but gentle, wearing navy slacks and a black turtleneck that made her hair look like polished silver. The kind of woman who didn't waste words, but chose them like surgical tools. "Marla," she greeted, "come in." Let's talk about what this will cost. Inside her office, the air smelled like stale coffee and paper. A child's drawing was pinned near the window, Evan's. A little glass cup drawn in red and black, a jagged lightning bolt etched through it. Carla gestured to the seat across from her. I want you to understand something. Going forward with this? It's not just paperwork. It's war, but in legalese. I nodded. I know. She opened a folder. We've reviewed what you've submitted. I leaned forward. The video from Fran, the photo, Evan's drawing, the recording. Yes, she said, tapping the paper. You've given us evidence. But more importantly, you've given us emotion. It's not airtight, but it's human. And sometimes that matters more. I watched the light dance on the dust motes between us. Carla continued, but I have to ask, are you prepared if she denies everything? If she says you're lying, exaggerating, unstable? The words settled between us like an invisible weight. I closed my eyes and heard Shauna's voice again in that video. That kid's just a burden. Her laugh. The way she stirred the drink like it was a joke. I opened my eyes. No one lies as much as someone who's afraid the truth will finally matter. Carla didn't smile. She just nodded, scribbled something, and passed a form across the table. We've requested an emergency protection order for Evan. If it's granted, she'll have to keep her distance. That includes Sophie too for now. My throat caught. Does Sophie know? No. And unless necessary, we won't drag her into this. That child deserves peace, even if her mother doesn't. A soft knock at the door. An investigator stepped in, mid-40s, blazer too big at the shoulders, notepad already open. His voice was low but firm. Ma'am, I've reviewed your statements and exhibits. I have to ask, what makes you think Shauna meant to harm Evan? I met his eyes. Because she didn't care whether he got hurt. He jotted something down. And if the court rules in her favor, then I'll keep speaking. To the school. To the community. To anyone who'll listen. Because silence only helped her. He paused. That's not easy. It's not supposed to be. He nodded, quietly excused himself, and closed the door behind him. Carla turned back to me. We'll hear back on the emergency order by tomorrow. If it's granted, we'll start preparing for a more formal complaint. I stood slowly. So that's it for now? She handed me a small packet, legal guidelines, court contact info, a few words about media sensitivity. That's it, she said. For now. But I'll be honest, this isn't a sprint. It's going to feel like an endless hallway. And the system? Sometimes it waits to see if you'll give up before it moves. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Then I'll keep knocking until it does. As I stepped outside, the cold wind wrapped around me like doubt. A child passed me on the steps, dragging a stuffed penguin and holding a man's hand tightly. For a second, I imagined Evan in her place, small, trusting, unaware of the shadows grown-ups have to chase away. I looked down at the envelope in my hand. Then I looked ahead. This wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. And about not letting that truth sink into silence just because it made people uncomfortable. Some people say the calm before court is peaceful. For me, it was anything but calm. But it was necessary. It only took one night for the gossip to turn into whispers, and then into threats. I used to think judgment wore suits and carried gavels. I was wrong. Judgment wears yoga pants and huddles near the PDA sign-up sheet. It whispers in grocery aisles. It doesn't need facts, just familiar faces and a little momentum. It started at school drop-off. A mom I'd once helped carpool with adjusted her sunglasses and turned away when I waved. Her daughter hesitated, looked at Evan, then looked down at her shoes. Tisha met me near the flagpole. She didn't smile this time. "It's getting worse online," she said, handing me her phone. I scrolled. Some moms will do anything for attention, even lie about their own kid's condition. Another post read, "She's always been jealous. Shauna's everything she's not." My stomach tightened. The worst part wasn't the lies, it was how easily people accepted them. How quickly sympathy flipped once someone made them uncomfortable. Later, at the grocery store, the cashier scanned my almond milk and didn't say a word. Usually, she asked about Evan. This time, she just stared at the register like it might save her from having to speak to me. When I stepped outside, a folded paper stuck out beneath my windshield wiper. My heart raced, but when I opened it, it said in careful handwriting, "Thank you." My niece was scared of her too. "You're not alone." No name, just a folded note, damp from the cold. That night, Trevor called. I let it go to voicemail, but he called again, and again. On the fourth try, I answered. "What?" I said, flatly. He sighed. "Marla, Shauna says Evan lied." I didn't yell, didn't scream. I just hung up. Some wounds don't need reopening. They just need sealing. Back home, I refreshed my social media. Shauna had posted a photo of Sophie smiling with a gingerbread house. The caption read, "I forgive those who accuse me. God sees all." Sometimes the loudest voices are the ones furthest from the truth. 400 likes. Comments filled with praying hands and hearts. Tisha texted, "She's playing the martyr card." I stared at the screen. It didn't even make me angry this time. Just tired. Forgiveness should never be used as camouflage. And Shauna wore hers like a velvet cloak, soft to the touch, hiding sharp edges. Later that evening, there was a knock. A courier. He handed me a manila envelope and left without a word. I opened it. Summons. Defamation suit. Filed by Shauna Delaney. I sat on the floor for a while, the paper clutched in my hands. Not crying. Not panicking. Just still. Then my phone buzzed again. "Carla," I answered. "She's suing me," I said, voice hoarse. "I know," Carla replied. "I got the notice too." There was a pause. "She's using the legal system to silence you. To make you the villain. Can she win?" I asked. Another pause. Then, "She can try. But now we have a court date." I exhaled. A long, shuddering breath I didn't know I was holding. For the first time in weeks, it felt like something concrete was happening. Not just whispers, not just threats, but something with structure, with rules. Of course, she was suing me. Of course, she was spinning everything. That was what people like Shauna did. They smiled with their whole teeth while they filed lawsuits with their fingers. I folded the summons neatly. Put it next to Evan's drawing on the fridge. This fight wasn't over. It was just changing shape. And I was ready. Sometimes it's not adults who make the biggest noise. It's the child who finally decides to speak. It had rained early that morning, the kind of soft Georgia drizzle that made the grass shimmer and the earth smell like memory. Grandma's garden looked washed clean. Daffodils bent gently under droplets. The wind chimes on her porch sang a tune only quiet people hear. I wasn't supposed to be there. I had just dropped off some tea and paperwork for her, hoping to slip away before awkward conversation could bloom. But I saw Sophie first. She sat on the edge of the old wooden swing, not touching her iPad, not bouncing her legs the way she used to. She looked smaller than usual. Not in size, but in spirit. Like someone who'd been holding something heavy for too long. She glanced up and met my eyes. Then she said, Simply, Auntie Marla? I nodded. Hey there, honey. She paused, looked down at her feet. Evan didn't want it. Mom made him. I froze. The air around us stilled. Even the chimes stopped for a second. What do you mean, sweetie? She hesitated, picking at her fingernails. The juice. He said no. Mom said it's a game. Then she said, if he told, he'd make me go away too. A lump grew in my throat. I sat beside her slowly, careful not to startle the moment. Sophie, did anyone else see it? She nodded. The boy with the dinosaur shirt. He was climbing on the slide. He looked scared, too. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out my phone, and tapped the recorder. My hands were trembling, but my voice stayed even. Can you say that again? Only if you want to. She looked at me with eyes far too old for her age. Then, in a shaky, quiet voice, she repeated. Evan said no. Mom made him drink. She laughed. She said he's too whiny anyway. I ended the recording. I didn't hug her. Not yet. I didn't want to make her feel like she was giving something away. Instead, I whispered, thank you. That was really brave. She dug into her little rainbow backpack. I wasn't supposed to bring this, she said. But I kept it because Evan said it smelled bad. She handed me a small, dented cardboard box, the kind used to hold organic fruit juice boxes. The label was faded but still legible. I turned it in my hands. There was a faint sticky patch near the corner. It smelled vaguely of mint and berries and something else, something chemical. She told me to throw it away, Sophie added. I pretended I did. My phone buzzed. Carla. I stepped a few feet away and answered in a whisper. I have something. From Sophie. I played the audio. Carla didn't say anything at first. I could hear her inhale sharply on the other end. Then, this is what we needed. She's the inside witness. No hearsay. No inference. Just a child telling the truth. She also gave me the juice box. Carla's voice dropped an octave. Do not open it again. Bag it. I'll send someone. You just gave us traction, Marla. I turned to see Sophie still swinging slightly, staring at the tulips. Get ready, Carla said. We're going to present this. After we hung up, I walked back and knelt in front of Sophie. Can I ask one more thing? She nodded. Why did you decide to tell me now? She fidgeted. Because Evan doesn't smile anymore. And you looked like you needed someone to believe you. I smiled at her, but it trembled. Then I said the only thing that felt right. You are the bravest girl I know. We sat together in silence for a while, two souls piecing together something broken. I looked up at the sky, watching clouds gather again. It might rain soon, but for now it felt like truth was clearing its throat. She walked into court like it was a party. All pearls and pastels, all pretend. The district courthouse smelled like old paper, cold coffee, and something sharp you couldn't quite name. Maybe tension, maybe time. The hallway floors clicked under my boots, every step echoing louder than it should have. Carla walked beside me, calm as always, holding a folder labeled simply MW. When I saw Shauna, it wasn't the outfit that surprised me, it was the smile. Peach pink cardigan, tailored cream skirt, pearls just loose enough to look casual. She waved lightly to someone in the hall like she was arriving for brunch. Her perfume reached me before her voice did, floral, expensive, cloying. But that day it reeked of fear and silk. She caught my eye and offered a quick nod, like we were co-stars in some community play. Like this was all just part of the script. I clenched my jaw and looked away. Inside, the courtroom was colder than I expected. Brown wood benches, dusty light slanting through narrow windows, and a judge who looked like he'd rather be gardening. Case number 428, D. Shauna Delaney versus Marla Whitmore, the clerk announced. Shauna leaned toward her lawyer and whispered something with a chuckle. I saw the judge glance over. He didn't smile. Carla stood. Your Honor, this case involves an alleged defamation suit filed by the plaintiff against my client, Mrs. Whitmore. We believe this matter cannot proceed until more serious concerns, namely child endangerment, are fully investigated. The judge raised an eyebrow. Shauna's attorney, a man with two slick hair and two white teeth, rose and said, We're here because my client has been the subject of a targeted smear campaign. She's a mother, a volunteer, and until recently, a beloved member of the community. I nearly scoffed. Carla placed a calming hand on my forearm. Then it was time. Carla clicked the remote and played the short video. Fran's kitchen. Shauna's voice clear as day. That kid's just a burden. One little push, he'd fall. The courtroom was silent. Even the walls seemed to hold their breath. Then came Sophie's audio. Just a child's shaky voice. She said, Don't tell Mommy or I'll take Sophie away too. I didn't look at Shauna. I looked at the judge. His pen stopped mid-note. We submitted Evans drawing the glass, the red lightning bolt. Carla held it up like evidence and love in one frame. Then Tisha took the stand. Her voice shook, but she didn't waver. She told me, years ago, that she liked making quiet kids cry. That they were easy. I thought she was joking. I was wrong. And Trevor. He didn't testify, not officially. But he was in the back row. For the first time, he didn't sit near Shauna. He didn't smile. He didn't glare. When I looked back, he just bowed his head. Shauna stood up, still composed. It was playful, she said, that same rehearsed voice she used at family gatherings. Not poison. Just a joke that got misunderstood. Kids exaggerate. That's what they do. The judge didn't respond right away. He shuffled some papers, then said, The evidence presented today suggests this is far more serious than a defamation dispute. We are halting all civil proceedings pending further investigation. In the meantime, the restraining order against Ms. Delaney stands. I felt a weight lift, not fully gone, but loosened, like a too-tight dress unzipped an inch. As court adjourned, I stood. My knees ached. Not from age, from strain. From holding my ground longer than I thought I could. Shauna walked past me with soft steps. She leaned close enough for only me to hear. This isn't over. You just made it worse. I didn't flinch. I just met her eyes, no anger, no fear. Just truth. Because if this was a stage, then today, the script had changed. The truth isn't always buried deep. Sometimes, it's just hidden in plain sight on a school shelf. The school library after hours was quieter than I remembered. The air had that chalky, dry paper smell, mixed with something faintly electric. A fluorescent bulb buzzed overhead as if whispering secrets. I stepped carefully, my shoes making soft thuds on the thin carpet. Tisha met me near the back stacks, under the tall shelf where outdated encyclopedias gathered dust. She looked both nervous and resolved, like someone holding onto a match that could start or stop a fire. I wasn't even looking, she whispered. A janitor found this in the trash. Didn't think much of it, but when I plugged it into the school computer. She handed me the small USB stick, her fingers brushing mine. It felt heavier than it should have. You sure? I asked. My voice cracked against the quiet. Tisha nodded. She always leaves digital footprints. Too proud to delete. We huddled in the corner of the reading room. The screen flickered to life. I inserted the drive, half hoping it was corrupted, maybe even empty. But it wasn't. There she was, Shauna. Her phone camera must have been propped on something. She sat cross-legged on a floor scattered with plush toys and learning aids. A chalkboard behind her read, "Tips and tricks for tough kids, LOL." And she was laughing. Laughing as she mimicked a child's stutter. Laughing as she held up 2 juice bottles, one labeled sweet, one real fun. Laughing as she said, "Don't worry. They won't remember anyway. That's the best part." I couldn't breathe. For a second, it felt like I had been punched in the chest with silence. Tisha leaned in, her voice low. "This qualifies as malicious intent, right?" I didn't answer her. I was already dialing. Carla picked up on the second ring. "I have something," I said. "From the school." Shauna recorded herself, saying it was okay to mess with disabled kids. Called it teasing. She deleted it, but we have it. Carla's voice didn't change, but I could feel her pulse through the line. "That's no longer civil," she said. "That's criminal. We'll submit this tomorrow." I hesitated. "Is it too much?" Tisha put a hand on my shoulder. "It's exactly enough." My fingers shook as I ejected the USB and placed it in a sealed bag. I felt like I was holding both evidence and exhale. I left the library with Tisha's arm looped through mine. For a moment, we just walked, 2 women trying to balance fury with justice under a Georgia night sky that no longer felt heavy. The next morning, Carla submitted the video to the court. We didn't get fanfare. We didn't get headlines. But we got something better. A notice. The case had been upgraded from defamation to criminal inquiry. And then the call came. A deep voice on the other end. No greeting, just urgency. "Mrs. Whitmore? We need you to testify. And we need your son's drawing authenticated as evidence." I sat down on the edge of my bed, Evan's pink handkerchief folded beside me like a talisman. Courtrooms don't usually have audiences, but this one felt like a theater full of held breaths. The morning air was warm, sticky with the promise of summer. Yet inside the courtroom, it was all hush and hardwood. Rows of people lined the benches, neighbors, teachers, PTA mothers in pastel sweaters, even the barista from the cafe where Tisha and I used to meet. I stood at the front, barely hearing the murmurs as Carla laid out our case. The bailiff adjusted the mic. Evan's drawing sat in a clear folder beside me. I didn't look at it, not yet. Behind me, I felt the weight of the town's gaze. A place where people once smiled at Shauna in grocery aisles now leaned forward with curiosity, tension, even shame. Shauna entered like nothing had changed. Her hair curled just so. Pearls gleamed. Not a crack in the performance. Carla stood. Calm. Grounded. Steady like a metronome ticking toward truth. "We submit the following video," she said. The screen lowered. The lights dimmed slightly. And there it was. Shauna's voice filled the courtroom. "Don't worry. They won't remember anyway." A little teasing never hurt anyone. Laughter. Laughter sharp enough to cut bone. Someone in the crowd gasped. Another person whispered, "Is that her?" A teacher from the school looked down at her lap. Then came the second video. Sophie's face appeared. Hair pulled back, eyes wide. She made Evan drink it. He cried. I told her to stop. She told me I'd lose my toys if I told Mommy. I felt the air shift, like we'd all taken one breath together and held it. Carla turned to the judge. "This is not about punishment. This is about pattern. This is about safety for children whose only mistake is trusting the wrong adult." The judge nodded slowly, eyes unreadable. Then he looked at me. I stepped forward. Hands cold, voice steady. "This isn't revenge," I said. "This is safety for all our kids. If I stay quiet, who will speak for the next Evan?" For the first time, Shauna's smile twitched. Her chin lifted, but the corner of her mouth faltered. The judge cleared his throat. "In light of the evidence," he said, "charges of reckless endangerment will proceed. We will also open an emergency custody review regarding Ms. Shauna Bell's parental fitness." A ripple went through the crowd. I didn't look back. I couldn't. But I heard a mother whisper behind me, "She's not lying." Court adjourned. People began to rise. A creak of chairs. A few stayed seated, too stunned or too ashamed. As I gathered my things, Shauna brushed past me. No tears. No cracks in the foundation. Just those same cold pearls around her neck. "You've destroyed everything," she hissed. I looked at her. Really looked at her. And for once, I didn't flinch. "If destroying means breaking silence," I said, "I'll do it twice." She turned without another word. And I reached for Evan's drawing, tucked it gently back into my folder. Still colorful. Still whole. Justice isn't the end. It's the space where healing begins. The sun was softer that morning. Not timid, not loud, just enough to warm the air without demanding attention. Evan and I stood at the edge of a new park on the other side of town, the kind with rubber ground under the swings and blue-painted benches that didn't creak. He clutched my hand tighter than usual. "It smells different," he said. Then he sniffed again. "It's not scary." I looked down. His eyes scanned the playground like it was unfamiliar territory, which, in a way, it was. A few children ran past us, their laughter bouncing in the air like loose balloons. I hadn't heard him laugh freely in months. This wasn't the park where it all happened. That one we'd never return to. He asked me once, "Can they take out the grass and put in new grass?" And I'd said no, but we could find new grass. Tisha joined us a little later, 2 thermoses in hand. "Chamomile," she grinned, holding one out. "Because we're officially old enough to call it tea time." She sat beside me on the bench while Evan made his way toward a climbing structure shaped like a ship. He hovered at the base for a moment, then slowly started to climb. No rush. No panic. Tisha tapped my knee. "We're hosting the First Moms for Sensory Kids meeting next Saturday," she said. I already booked the community center. Fran's bringing snacks. I made sure none of them are red dye. I smiled. "You're a menace. And you love it." A moment later, a woman in a green cardigan approached. I didn't recognize her at first, until she got close enough for me to remember her turning her back at the PDA meeting. Her name was Jessica. Her son had been in Evan's class once. She stopped a few feet away. "I'm sorry," she said, voice brittle. "I should have believed you sooner." I nodded. "We all see things when we're ready." She wiped at her eye and turned back without asking for anything more. I appreciated that. Later that week, Evan was invited to paint a mural at his new school. A counselor had seen his drawings, bold swirls of color, lightning bolts, sunshine, and asked if he'd like to make a wall smile. He agreed, on one condition: it had to have birds. Ones that weren't in cages. On the day of the mural unveiling, I watched as he pointed out each color to the principal, explaining why the sun had a smile and the clouds had music notes. He even added a dog. "For Sophie," he said. "She likes puppies now." We were getting better. Then I got an email. The subject line read, "Keynote Speaker Confirmation, Children's Rights Panel." Carla had submitted my name without telling me. The note inside was simple. "We don't need pity. We need respect." That's what you said in court. That's what they want to hear again. I rehearsed for days. Not with a mirror, but with Evan. He'd listen as I spoke aloud in the kitchen, nodding occasionally, sometimes interrupting with, "Say it slower." Like a story. On the day of the event, he held my hand tightly, just like at the park. The lights weren't blinding, but the room was full. Advocates, teachers, parents, people who'd read the story, heard the whispers, seen the trial. I told them about the pink handkerchief, about juice that wasn't juice, about the lies dressed in lavender and sugar. I ended with, "Justice gave us a voice, but love gave us back our name." The applause was polite, quiet, just right. As I stepped down, Evan tugged my sleeve. "Can I say something too?" I knelt, unsure. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "Just one thing." I helped him to the microphone. He stared at the rows of strangers, then spoke softly. "I like this new park. And I don't have to be scared anymore." Evan didn't shout. He just whispered. And somehow everyone heard. The school campus buzzed with laughter, paper streamers, and the clinking of lemonade cups. It was festival day, a blend of end-of-year celebration and cautious optimism. Tables were set up with games, paint buckets, sensory-friendly stations, and booths filled with handmade crafts. The sun sat warm overhead like it had nothing left to prove. I had braided Evan's hair that morning. Something he said made his head feel less loud. He wore his blue shirt, the one with tiny stars on the collar. He liked the way it felt like sky. His fingers played nervously with the hem as we walked through the crowd. Tisha waved from the baked goods table, pointing at her lemon scones like they were sacred offerings. Sophie was nearby, holding a cup of fruit and chatting with her new classmate. For a moment, it all felt normal. Not quiet. Not loud. Just right. Then, the announcement. Students who want to share something, art, poems, or just their voice, please meet at the main stage in 5. I looked down. Evan was staring at the sign on the booth. Open mic. Your voice matters. He turned to me, cheeks pink, hands trembling slightly. "Can I?" he asked. I knelt. "You don't have to, baby." "I know," he said. "But I want to." The stage wasn't fancy, just a raised platform with a mic duct-taped to a wooden post. Parents gathered on fold-out chairs, fans in hand. A few students read poems. One sang. Another showed a drawing of a spaceship and whispered that it flew because no one told it couldn't. Then Evan stepped up. He took the mic with 2 hands. His fingers didn't shake. Not anymore. The crowd went still. The kind of silence that isn't afraid, it's just listening. He cleared his throat. "Hi," he said. "My name is Evan." He paused, looked around, took a breath. "I like blue. And I don't like apple juice." There was a beat. Then someone clapped. Then someone else. Then a little girl near the front shouted, "Me too." The whole place laughed. Not at him. With him. Sophie appeared beside him, slipping her hand into his. He didn't flinch. He smiled. Just a little, but enough. And in that moment, I didn't cry. I just stood still. Because this wasn't survival anymore. This was peace. Later that day, I overheard a mother say to another, "That's the boy. The one from the court thing. He's so brave." And the other replied, "It's not just him." That mom? She's the reason I started paying attention. I found a quiet patch of grass, sat down with my lemonade, and let the noise of the festival hum around me. Not chaotic, not threatening, just life moving on. Evan sat beside me and leaned into my side. "That wasn't scary," he said. "I know," I smiled. "You were amazing." He looked up. Did we win? And I thought about everything. The pain, the disbelief, the pink handkerchief on the doorknob, the court, the drawing, the whispers, the stares, but also the note slipped under my door. The teacher who finally spoke up. The applause. Sophie. Tisha. The woman who apologized. Yes, I whispered. We did. I'm the mother behind the story, the one who's been through every tear, every silence, and every quiet triumph you've just read. What stayed with me most through this long road wasn't just the fight for justice. It was the quiet strength of a little boy who taught me that being brave doesn't always mean being loud. Sometimes it simply means telling the truth, even when you're scared. This story was never about revenge. It was about being heard. About the kind of love that refuses to look away when things get uncomfortable. And above all, it was about believing our children, especially when the world doesn't. Have you ever felt unheard, even when your heart was screaming for someone to understand? Or stood alone for something you knew was right? If so, I'd love to hear from you. Share your story in the comments. I promise I'll read every single one. If this journey moved you, made you think of someone you love, or brought up memories worth holding on to, just drop a simple comment number 1. Or tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to know who's on the other side of the screen. And if you enjoy stories that speak softly but deeply, stories that come from real places of hurt and healing, please consider subscribing to the channel. There's more to share, more voices to uplift. Thank you for walking with me through all 16 chapters. Your time, your heart, your presence, it means the world. Until our next story, take care of each other. And never underestimate the strength of a quiet voice.